Welcome everyone. So today we have get another uh, AI session with our own mindset or whatever you want to tell it. So today our topic is about probability thinking as prediction obsession. So it is today our AI session. So let's continue with it. Hi ChatGPT, how are you and how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking. How about you? How's your day going?
My day is good, but today our topic is about probability thinking as prediction obsession. It is today our topic.
That's a great topic. Probability thinking is all about embracing uncertainty and making decisions based on likelihoods, while prediction obsession tends to overvalue exact outcomes. Is there a specific angle you want to dive into, or are you just exploring both concepts?
So probability thinking asks what could happen. Am I right?
Exactly. Probability thinking is really about weighing different possibilities and making peace with uncertainty. So you don't expect a single definite answer, but you understand the range of outcomes. Prediction obsession, on the other hand, kind of latches onto a single future scenario as if it were certain, even when it's not. So it's a pretty big shift in mindset.
What is different between probability and prediction in the simple terms?
Sure. So, in simple terms, probability is about understanding the chances of different things happening. Like it says, this could happen with a 30% chance, that with a 70% chance. Prediction, on the other hand, is trying to declare one specific outcome as if it's the future, like saying, I know exactly what will happen next. So, probability leaves room for uncertainty, prediction is more rigid.
So why is certainly danger in decisions making?
Yeah, exactly. When we assume certainty, we can overlook the complexity and uncertainty that real life has. It pushes us to make riskier choices because we feel sure. But in reality, things often shift. Probability thinking, though, keeps us open to surprises and helps us build better, more flexible decisions.
So can any real
Yeah,
world outcome be 100% prediction? Why or why not?
right. So in the real world, it's really rare for outcomes to be 100% predictable because so many factors are at play. Things like randomness, hidden variables, or just incomplete info. Even something like weather forecasts, which we trust a lot, still have a margin of error. So probability gives us a more realistic frame for dealing with that uncertainty.
Okay, so today what is the weather of Peshawar?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it really depends on the situation. Probability thinking is usually more robust for long term decision making, especially when uncertainty is high. Prediction obsession might feel good in the short term, like when we want a definite answer, but it can set us up for disappointment. So, for safer, smarter choices, probability thinking generally wins out.
Why not prediction thinking?
Yeah, so the big risk with prediction thinking is that it can create a false sense of control. When we believe we know exactly what's going to happen, we often ignore new info or changing conditions. Plus, when things don't go as predicted, we can get overconfident or even double down on bad decisions. Probability thinking, in contrast, keeps us flexible and humble, so we adjust as things unfold.
It is good, but for in the game you do not will do you will predict it, not probability. So that's why in games there are not probability, they predict it. Why?
That's a really good point. In a lot of games, especially competitive ones, people really crave a sense of certainty. Like if you make a move, you predict that it will lead to a win. That's partly because games often have clearer rules and more immediate feedback. But even in game, probability can still be useful, like when you weigh risks or decide between strategies. But yeah, the focus on prediction makes sense because people want that edge, that clarity, that certainty of a move paying off.
In the case where you are telling it is not like that kind of thing, so what will happen? But prediction thinking will be probability. If you first do ev- Okay, I will take the example of the chess game, which is more reliable on the prediction, not on reliability. Am I right?
Ah, yeah, I see what you're getting at. So, in something like chess, it's true. Players often focus on predicting a specific move and outcome, especially if they're really experienced. But even in chess, there's a probability side. Like a player might predict a certain line of play, but there's still a range of responses they could face. So, in that sense, prediction is kind of a shortcut. It's like a hypothesis based on patterns, but probability thinking still underlies it because you're weighing all the possible responses. So, yeah, you're on the right track.
Then probability or what?
Exactly. So probability is like your foundation. You're always aware of the range of possibilities and their likelihoods, while prediction is just a specific guess based on what you've seen before. So by staying rooted in probability, you keep yourself open to surprises and avoid overcommitting to one exact outcome.
What? Thinking style. So, do you usually think in yes or no or likelihood?
Ah, that's a great question. I tend to lean toward likelihood thinking, especially because most decisions or outcomes have a mix of possibilities. So instead of seeing things as purely yes or no, I try to weigh the odds and see what's most probable. It helps keep me flexible and less rigid.
So, what should you do? Yes or no likelihood, or uh, if in trading you can never do prediction or no, it is about trading this topic. So probability will be more much useless in trading. Am I right? Prediction will be useful in um chess. No, in trading. And in chess it is also like kind of thing because chess and trading are works of smart.
Yeah, exactly. Both involve a lot of strategic thinking, but they differ in how uncertainty works. In trading, you really have to embrace probability because markets are driven by so many random factors. So you assess risks and odds. Chess, though, is more closed and deterministic. Every move is a conscious choice. So in chess, prediction can be more powerful because you have a finite set of outcomes. But in trading, probability is your best friend.
Now, how do we check probabilities in that situation?
Ah, great question. So in trading, you usually look at historical data like past price movements, volatility, and patterns. And from that, you calculate probabilities like the chance of a certain price range being reached. You can also use things like options pricing, risk models, or even Monte Carlo simulations. Basically, you're trying to quantify all those odds so you can make more informed decisions.
If people are what it will be a very good question. If peop, if a person first trust a AI tool for it and it works correctly, should he trust him twicely or
Ah, that's a really nuanced one. I think it depends a lot on how transparent the AI is, how it's reasoning, and what kind of track record it has. If it was just a lucky call or a one off, then maybe you should stay cautious. But if the AI consistently aligns with real world probabilities, then yeah, you can trust it more over time. Just stay critical though and keep testing.
so I think we should trust the AI tool.
Yeah, exactly. If it's been consistently accurate and the reasoning is sound, then it can be a really powerful tool. Just remember to keep an eye on it. No tool is perfect, so use it as a guide, but still stay engaged and think critically about each decision.
If first it gives us correct, then it does not give us correct, and then the person is clinging to the uh, clinging to the AI tool, and he's and so what?
Yeah, exactly. That's where the risk is. If someone clings too tightly after a string of good calls, they can develop overconfidence. Then, when the AI makes a wrong call, they're not prepared and they might take bigger risks or double down even though the odds aren't there. So, it's really important to keep a balanced mindset. Trust it, but always keep a critical lens and diversify your approach.
So you think it is good or not?
Yeah, I think it can be really helpful, but it's all about balance. If you stay aware, keep testing the tool against your own judgment, and never blindly rely on it, then it can give you an edge. Just don't let it replace your own critical thinking, especially when stakes are high.
Okay, how often do you consider multiply possible outcome?
Ah, that's a really valuable approach. I think multiplying possibilities is a big part of probability thinking. So when you consider all the different scenarios, you get a fuller picture. It kind of prevents you from anchoring too hard on just one outcome. So the more possibilities you weigh, the better you can hedge against unexpected surprises.
Hmm. So we should continue. You. What happens when you ignore uncertainties? Uncertainties.
Yeah, that's a really big risk. When you ignore uncertainty, you tend to overcommit to a single prediction or outcome. And then if things go sideways, you're caught off guard. It can lead to bigger losses, riskier bets, or just poor decision making. So staying aware of those unknowns really keeps you from being blindsided.
It was about our old talk. About our. Yeah, you understand what I'm talking. So in that case, the a genius will always come out with 100 or 50 or 10. 10 is the maximum probability that a genius will come out with. What if a genius is not a probability genius, and if they do not come out of probabilities and they just put their money in it?
Ah, yeah, I get you. So even a genius, if they're not using probability, is still just acting on intuition or a gut feeling. And that can be super risky because without probability, even a genius can misjudge the odds. So in that case, they might get lucky once or twice, but over time, they're just as vulnerable to big unexpected losses.
So you also think geniuses are nothing like that, but they do not come out of probability in every situation. So they are not typically like of a certain genius. They are only genius in their studies.
Exactly, yeah. A genius might excel in a certain field, like math or art or a specific area of expertise, but that doesn't make them a universal probability expert. They can still fall into the same human biases, just like anyone else, if they don't consciously weigh probabilities in their decisions.
What if there is a person and he is doing not good in studies, and he is good in anything here you want from him? What will he call? A lazy genius, a prodigy, or something? Prodigy. What is a prodigy here in my world? In yeah, what would be a prodigy? Just forget about the prodigy. Just answer the first. What if he's not good at studies and in all over thing and money making and everything? What should then he called?
Ah, yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, there's no single label, but often people just call them a late bloomer or maybe an underpursued talent. Sometimes they just haven't found their niche yet. So it's not laziness or a fixed label, it's just a phase or a matter of time until they discover what really clicks for them.
It is smarter to be flexible or confident. Why?
Oh, absolutely. Flexibility is usually smarter because it lets you adapt when things change. If you're rigid, you can miss out on new opportunities or get stuck when something doesn't work. So by staying flexible, you keep a broader perspective and more options, which is really valuable in the long run.
How does red thinking fall in complex situations?
Yeah, that's a great point. In complex situations, probability thinking really helps because it forces you to break things down, identify all the possible outcomes, consider different influences, and weigh them. So instead of just jumping to one conclusion, you embrace all the uncertainty and get a clearer and more nuanced decision, even when things are really messy.
So, can the decisions lead to a bad or a good result? Explained.
Yeah, definitely. So decisions based on probability thinking tend to give you better long-term outcomes because you're factoring in risks and uncertainties, not just one fixed guess. So they can lead to good results if you're consistent. But if you ignore probability, you can get really skewed outcomes. Sometimes good by chance, but often bad if you're too overconfident. So probability is a safeguard against that unpredictability.
Can a bad decisions lead to a good result?
Yeah, sometimes they can, purely by luck or coincidence, but that's really dangerous to rely on because it's not a repeatable strategy. So even if a bad decision works out once, over time it's riskier. Probability thinking, on the other hand, gives you a better framework to keep those outcomes more balanced and reliable.
So, why is focusing on one outcome mislead?
Yeah, so when we fixate on one outcome, we tend to ignore all the other possibilities and risks. That can give us a false sense of confidence, so we make bigger, riskier moves or we don't adapt when things change. By staying open to different outcomes, we make more resilient decisions that can handle surprises.
So what role does probability play in smart decisions?
Ah, great question. Probability helps you see all the possible outcomes and their likelihoods, so you're not just reacting to one scenario. In a complex world, that lets you weigh risks, avoid blind spots, and make decisions that are more robust. It's like a built in reality check, keeping you from chasing illusions or getting stuck on one path.
So, why do people hate being wrong?
Yeah, that's really human, right? Being wrong feels like a hit to our ego, or it makes us feel less in control. We often associate being right with safety or competence, so when we're wrong, it kind of stings. But ironically, if we can embrace being wrong, it's a huge growth opportunity because we learn, we adapt, and we refine our decisions going forward.
So, how does ego affect a prediction?
Ah, yeah. So ego can really skew our predictions. When we have a big ego, we tend to overestimate our accuracy, cling to our own assumptions, and dismiss contrary evidence. So instead of being flexible and adjusting based on probability, ego keeps us locked into one narrative, even when it's wrong.
Okay, so how does ego affect the? Do you defend on your opinion even with the evidence changes?
Yeah, exactly. When ego steps in, we tend to hold on to our original beliefs, even when evidence starts to pile up against them. We get defensive, we reinterpret data to fit our worldview, or we just dismiss new info.
So, how can you defend to improve thinking?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really comes down to practicing self awareness. When you notice you're clinging to a belief, pause and ask yourself, what evidence would change my mind? And then actively seek new information, even if it's uncomfortable. Over time, that habit of revisiting your views, staying curious, and adjusting your perspective keeps your thinking sharper and more flexible.
So, what is risk and how it is connected to probability?
Ah, great point. So, risk is basically the potential for loss or some negative outcome, and probability is the measure we use to understand how likely those outcomes are. So, when we combine them, we get a clearer picture of how much risk we're taking. The higher the probability of a bad outcome, the higher the risk. And that helps us decide how much risk we're willing to take in a given situation.
Why is preparing for one outcome be risky?
Ah, right. So when you prepare for just one outcome, you're kind of putting all your eggs in that single basket. If reality shifts or that outcome doesn't happen, you have no backup. So you risk being totally unprepared for the unexpected. Probability thinking, though, pushes you to anticipate a range of outcomes so you have more resilience and can pivot if things go off track.
What is the worst case scenario and why should you consider it?
Yeah, exactly. So you want to keep a broad perspective, shine a light on all the possibilities, not just the one you hope for. By considering multiple outcomes, you reduce blind spots and make decisions that are more adaptable. So the key is to stay flexible, keep weighing those probabilities, and stay open to change.
What is the worst case scenario and why should you consider it?
Ah, the worst case scenario is basically the most negative outcome you can imagine. You consider it because it helps you prepare for the unexpected and it keeps you grounded. When you know the worst case, you can figure out how to mitigate it, or at least not be completely blindsided.
Are you willing to replace certain with the better thinking?
Yeah, exactly. It's not about letting fear drive you, it's just about broadening your thinking so you don't miss critical risks. By considering the worst case, you balance it with the most likely outcomes and keep yourself prepared. So your decisions stay smart and flexible, not just reactive.
About everyone who have watched it here, thanks for watching and thanks ChatGPT. Thank you. Bye bye.